What's up, guys? Welcome into a new show that we have not properly named yet, but we're going with Meat and Three because it's all our small brains can come up with Chris Marler and Clint Lamb. Welcome in. We appreciate you joining us along. Clint, how you doing, man?
Meat and Three with two guys. So we'll leave that third one up for interpretation, I guess.
Two guys, one meat. That sounds significantly worse.
Okay, we'll leave it recording. Part of me was going to ask if we needed to stop. Anyways, Chris, I'm happy to finally be here with you, brother.
Yeah, man.
I feel like we've been planning this for a while, and you kept taking forever, which we won't, hold it against you. But yeah, I'm happy to be here now.
I was definitely taking forever with my career, for sure. That's what happened. Also, I'm excited that we finally get to kick off your career suicide, as people called it on social media, for joining along with me. I'm super pumped. We do have our first show. Like, listen, we're gonna try and figure out there's gonna be some bumps in the road, stuff like that. We're not sold on Meat and Three. Cannot stress that enough. We're definitely not going to do the two guys, one meat thing. That's definitely out of the running. But send us suggestions, whatever. But we're excited. This will be I don't know the right way to phrase it because it's not a weekly show. We'll be doing it multiple times a week, so it's not bi-weekly. But we will be talking about Alabama football and SEC football multiple times a week for about 30 minutes at a time. And I could not be more excited to finally get to do a Bama show with you. And so we'll just get started. Like the topics we got today, we got some good stuff. We're recording this on August 14th. So it's a Wednesday. The AP poll has just come out, the official preseason AP poll. We got some bowl projections that have also come out from 247. I want to talk about some breakout players at Alabama in general. And then I want to talk about from around the SEC and like kind of scaling it back and looking around not just the Bama stuff, but how many SEC teams realistically can get in the college football playoff? Because I think I'm just not sold that from the stuff I keep hearing from SEC fans that's as accurate as they might think. Like we're not talking about 5 or 6 teams getting from the SEC every year, but we'll address all of those things. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about Bama, and we'll keep the focus there because that is our two favorite teams. It's a team that you've done a tremendous job covering for several years now, and are going to continue to do a great job of covering with our friends over there at Next Round Live and Cover Crimson. But I want to talk about breakout players specifically, and it's a good year for it because the season we have coming up, obviously first year without Nick Saban, I don't know if you've heard, but also it's just a ton of new faces. You lost, I believe, 40 to 41 overall players in the transfer portal. You lost 12 alone to the portal and the NFL draft in the secondary. So there's a ton of new faces on that roster and in that locker room. And I want to figure out and talk about some of the names on both sides of the ball that could be breakout players. So let me start with you because you're somebody that's closer to the program. You've been around here with preseason fall camp. What are some guys that maybe, I won't say that Bama fans aren't familiar with, but that we might have seen on some recruiting commitment lists and like from a year or two ago that now might be on the starting rotation?
Yeah, that's you always got to define when you say breakout candidates. Like, Justice Haynes could be a breakout candidate because he hadn't been a starter, but it's right. And he didn't get a whole lot outside of the Rose Bowl. He didn't get any significant action last year. So he's the perfect breakout candidate, but everybody knows about Justice Haynes. So It's like kind of under the radar breakout guys. And I think, there are several. I think that we talk a lot about offensive line would certainly be one for me because you got 4 of the 5 spots pretty much solidified, but that right tackle position with Wilkin Formby and Elijah Pritchett, a lot of people I've seen have projected or predicted Elijah Pritchett. I completely understand that. He probably makes the most sense as far as just getting the playing time that he got last year, the fact that he was a former top 40 recruit is a year older than Formby. But I actually really like Wilkin Formby. I think he's the perfect fit just from a body type, from, he brings a little bit of that grittiness and that edge to be a really good SEC offensive lineman, but he also has that athletic profile, as does Elijah Pritchett to a certain extent, but to be a very effective tackle, in my opinion, in a Kalen DeBoer offense.
Yeah.
And so, I know a lot of fans probably know about Wilkin Formby. He's been running with the first team offense pretty much throughout, fall camp. But that's somebody that I think we need to be talking about more because those other 4 spots are in a really good place where I feel like they are. But I feel like right tackle's in a much better spot than a lot of people realize. And if that ends up being the case, the offensive line is going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offensive line. You and I have talked about this. I have two. Me and Josh Pate were talking about this yesterday. Just like via text. Like it still blows my mind, and I feel like no matter how many times I look at the numbers, it will not stop blowing my mind that offensive line a year ago. You heard all the talk going into SEC Media Days about joyless murder ball, and I didn't know that they were even listening to Bama Twitter, that they were actually saying joyless murder ball out loud. And for the most part, that offensive line ended up being joyless. And I think a lot of that started at center. I really do. I think with I'm not just trying to pin all the blame on Seth McLaughlin, especially just because he's gone. But, the bad snaps, you and I have talked about this. What's the first thing that has to happen in a game of American football for an offensive play to start? It is snapping the football. And when you had problems with that right off the jump, in the Rose Bowl alone, 33 of the 65 total snaps in that game were off target. And that's a massive deal. So you can pin the blame on Jalen Milroe and some of the sacks and things like that if you want. But it was bad all around. It's an offensive line that gave up 49 sacks a year ago. That was more, to put that in perspective, it's the most in program history. They gave up six games in a row where they had 4 or more sacks allowed. So it's the only team in the FBS in the last 20 years to do that. Think about that. At Alabama, with that star power, they had 8 total games with 4 or more sacks. Jalen Milroe himself in 13 total starts, 14 total starts in his career, he's been sacked 48 times. That's the same amount as A.J. McCarron, who had 40 starts. I mean, that's insane. They had 49 sacks allowed, which was more than Washington, Oregon, Georgia, and Michigan combined, and 11 more than Georgia has allowed in the last 3 years combined. So you have to be better. I would tell you on the other side of the ball, against the guys that they're going up against every single day in practice, the edge rushing position, right? And coming off the edge and pass rush, there is an immense amount of talent there. And Keon Keeley is the name I keep coming to because he was the highest rated out of high school, where you're not just talking about a 5-star, you're talking about a top 3 overall player in the country coming out of high school. So you would hope that he has progressed as somebody that rarely saw the field a year ago. But I'll spin it back to you, like asking if there's other names at that position that we will see have more production this year, because I remember this going into last year's recruiting cycle. So from the 2021 to the 2023 class, the edge rush position had only been ranked as its own position on 247 Sports in 3 years. And in those 3 years, you had 10 total 5-stars, right? So 10 total 5-stars all time from 21 to 2023 at the edge rush position. 6 of them went to Bama. So, Dallas Turner is one of them. He's gone. But, look, what is the next name in that line of, I'm not saying it has to be Will Anderson, but who comes up in your mind off the edge of that spot to get to the quarterback?
Well, real quick, I do want to point out, as far as the offensive line is concerned, you build a 350-plus pound offensive line across the board pretty much. You have to have more success on early downs. Alabama was banking on having more early down success. When it's 3rd and 2 or it's 3rd and 3, that big offensive line can bully folks. You can play the solid football that you want. When it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, for whatever reason, I mean, you're putting them in a position where they're pass blocking and the opposing defense knows it's coming, and it's not a good recipe. So that had a lot to do with it. It was not just what they envisioned versus how it was executed was very poorly done. As far as the defensive line and the outside linebacker position, the edge rushers, the Wolf in particular, here's what I'll say about Keon Keeley, because I like him a lot, and I know the coaching staff likes him a lot, and they're doing everything they can to give him extra attention, extra coaching. They're trying to bring him along. But I will say this, until I actually see him getting some reps with the first team defense or hear about it, maybe it's in a photo that they post, or maybe it's in a practice clip, or maybe it's at fan day. It was not. We see him beating up on 3rd team guys. Now, when we say 3rd team guys, there's 14 scholarship offensive linemen. So just from, there's 5 starters. So obviously there's at bare minimum going to be 1 walk-on the 3rd team offensive line. So when we say 3rd team, it's like the freshman and the, maybe a walk-on, maybe 2 walk-ons, whatever. And so we continue to see him beat up on all those guys, but I guess I've seen it a little bit against the 2nd team as well. He's been kind of 2nd and 3rd team. That needs to move up to 1st, 2nd team. You need to be seeing, even if you're not seeing the same amount of success, just him getting the action against the 1st team offense or with the 1st team defense or whatever. until I actually start seeing that, I'm going to continue to say I love him as a future guy.
Right.
And we'll just see where it goes. And if he ends up playing, he's a surprise contributor and he's getting those reps or whatever, maybe it's not in week 1, maybe it's in week 6 or week 8. Whenever that day comes, I know that he'll be a guy that's ready, and that all the extra attention and effort that the coaching staff has put into getting him ready is probably going to pay off, because that means he can be trusted, and just the talent that he brings to the table is unlike anything else that Alabama's got at Wolf or at Bandit. I mean, so I'm a huge fan of Keeley. As far as guys who right now I would project, Quay Russaw is just a player who, you know, the lack of length showed up on his high school tape at times. He's not overly long. Part of me thought he would be a better fit as an off-ball linebacker, or, you know, really this position that he's playing in Alabama's defense, even though I think when Womack was first named the head coach, I thought, okay, you go and you look at their Wolf and how he was used last year, and you saw about a third of his snaps off the ball. And then you look a little bit further into it, you're like, well, that was a former full-time off-ball linebacker that they knew felt really comfortable playing off the ball. And so they did, you know, some different things with him. Will that be the Wolf every year? It might not be, but we do know that with Russaw, you know, he's got the ability. He's played some off-ball linebacker. He should be comfortable doing that. But him as an edge rusher, even though he kind of lacks the length that you look for, the ideal length, just the motor, the understanding of leverage, his ability to convert speed to power. You know, I think, you know, with hand uses, very violent hands, I would have liked to have seen in high school a little bit more of a plan as a pass rusher at times, but just a guy who I think has immense upside as well. And we've been hearing the buzz about him. We know he's getting work with the second team defense and the first team defense quite a bit. So do I think he's going to end up being the starter? No, but I do think he's going to end up being in the rotation. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if by the end of the year, he's the best player Alabama has at that position. I will probably go ahead and say, if I had to predict right now who's going to lead the team in sacks, I'm going out on a limb and I'm going to say LT Overton. But I think a lot of, and we can get into that if you want to, no problem. But if a lot of that will have to do with the fact that I think it's going to be a 3-man rotation at Wolf, that's going to cap all of their, you know, upside, as far as you might get 12, 13 sacks total out of that position, but it could be divvied up over 3 guys.
You know, here's one thing too that I think it like, I don't care if anyone has a Will Anderson type year, like you know, if you go out and get 17.5 sacks, I mean, that second half that Will Anderson had when he turned it on, like really turned it on after that A&M loss, it was unlike anything I've seen. Like I wasn't alive for the Derek Thomas era, but like I don't think we're ever going to see 27 sacks in a season again, right? Like I don't think that's happening. I don't think we're going to see 8 in a game against Penn State or anything like that. Like I just, you know, I could be wrong. So I don't care if that happens or not. But like, what I would love to see, and I think you have the potential to do it, especially in a position like this with the depth you have from like in the quality of depth. And Bama fans might not love the example I'm going to give, but think back to that 2021 Georgia team. And one of the things you kept hearing about with Kirby Smart, which was like the depth they are building at Georgia. Like they were getting double-digit guys on defense that were getting 25 snaps or more a game, but it wasn't, and they had guys everywhere. Like, you know, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. I don't know how, but the kid who went number 1 overall to Jacksonville off the edge. Why can't I think of his name?
Now I'm drawing a blank on his name. It starts with a T, right?
I don't think it does. No. Either way, everyone.
Let me stop thinking about it for a second, and I'll remember it.
Anyway,
don't tell me.
I'm Googling it right now. Shut up.
Don't
We're live.
do that.
It doesn't matter.
Just give me a second.
But no, and you know that multiple people are just screaming at their radio or computer right now about how dumb we sound because they know the answer, and we're gonna feel stupid too when we finally figure Trayvon Walker. Regardless, that's a guy that didn't even.
What does that start with, Chris?
A T.
Thank you. Proceed.
So, but that's not even a guy that like was considered necessarily a starter at times at Georgia and goes number 1 overall. And like, I'm not saying that they need to follow a Kirby blueprint or anything like that at all. What I am saying is in this day and age, and I think what we're going to start seeing in the college football playoff era that's expanding from 12 teams this year to 14 next year, that when you have more and more quality depth, like you're going to need it at positions like this specifically, because you're going to be on the field longer. The way offenses are playing nowadays, right? And getting as many plays in as possible per game. Guys like Sark, guys like Kiffin, like they want to be around like 85 plus a game. You need as much quality depth as possible, especially a place like this. So I'm fine with that. Like, I don't care if you said if they get 12 to 13 sacks, if they're all at 4, but as long as you can get production out of that specific position. I'll tell you the other one I'm excited about, and it's funny watching the way the offseason unfolds. And I think it's like you go from this, like, especially with Alabama this year and everything that happened in the offseason, from Saban retiring to the portal and losing all those people, and just having your roster openly picked from everyone in the country. But the pessimism that has slowly transitioned into not just optimism, but like momentum into confidence about how this team is going to look under Kalen DeBoer. I love the fact that the idea that there was not a quarterback that was going to fit in this system, right? Like with Jalen Milroe, he wasn't going to be that great under Kalen DeBoer. You heard it from outside of Tuscaloosa more than anything. Ty Simpson was clearly a transfer, and Austin Mack might even be the starter. All this like dumb crap like this. Now you're looking at this quarterback room and you're like, man, this is one of the deeper and more talented quarterback rooms, not just in the SEC, but the entire country with the quality depth they have there. And the other one is who we've run the ball to. We talk about Ryan Williams a lot, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. But Caleb Odom being an absolute mismatch at his size and skill set, I think he is going to eat in this offense, because this is not one of those things where you've seen Bama years in the past where, like, you think about Calvin Ridley getting so many targets from Jalen Hurts or time before that even. This is an offense under Kalen DeBoer where, like, you're going to be 3 deep at receiver, and all of them are going to put up numbers and have a lot of production.
And that's, Caleb Odom's such an interesting case to me, because he offers something that the rest of the group doesn't have, and I've said this multiple times, and certain Alabama fans have not seemed to have liked it the first couple of times I've said it, but I'll say it again. I think Amari Nablack, in the role that he served as far as being a headache for opposing defensive coordinators on a week-in, week-out basis, is something that Alabama is currently lacking as far as the way that he created that mismatch. You can have mismatches in other ways, but with Amari Nablack specifically, I'm not saying he was this all-star player that put up numbers every single week, and man, what's Alabama going to do to replace him? I'm saying that the mismatch, what you forced defenses to account for, and if you've got that unicorn defender, you try to use that unicorn defender as much as you can to match the height, weight, speed that Amari Nablack brought to the table. That is what I'm talking about when I make this comparison. I don't think Caleb Odom is going to come out here in year 1 and just set the world on fire and be completely, you can't stop him. The production is there. He's topping 1,000 yards. I just think that if you can get him involved in this offense and what he brings to the table as far as being a red zone, a strong red zone option, as far as being a guy who can win at the catch point, climb the ladder, get to a point where no other defensive back can get to, because he's got the leaping ability. He's got the size and the length and the wingspan to where if you put a ball in a certain place, there's one guy that can go get it, and that's Caleb Odom.
Right.
Kind of the bailout option in certain situations. We saw Bo Nix make a living off of this with Seth Williams. And I don't think Alabama currently has that style of player that has come in and been established that can be that. And that's because the tight ends, it's a different group. This whole hybrid flex, you'll see tight ends that they have get flexed. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm not saying that they can't catch. They certainly can. I think Cuevas is going to have a pretty big role. I think you got 3 or 4 really good tight ends. I love that room. But I'm saying it's just you don't have a Kyle Pitts type. And that's kind of what Amari Nablack was to an extent. He didn't have the production of the targets or the consistency of a Kyle Pitts or anywhere close. But just, when you were an opposing defensive coordinator and you were having to prepare for Florida's offense back in 2020, you were terrified. I don't even know, where do you begin to stop Kyle Pitts? Caleb Odom can eventually be that style of player, and just having that in your offense, if he's getting 5, 6, 7 snaps a game, if he's getting the Jalen Hell treatment from last year a little bit, or maybe you're getting him some targets and stuff in there, I think that just making opposing defenses account for that each and every week and have to prepare for it, I think it would do wonders for Alabama's offense.
I agree. All right, first segment out of the way. We went way longer than we're supposed to, which is...
You should have known that was coming, Chief.
Dude, I can't...
This is meeting 3. We're giving people their money's worth. Come on.
Yeah, three things you will learn about me is that I hate yellow starburst, ISIS, and being short-winded. So there's that. I will say this.
Yellow starburst?
Who likes yellow star? People that like yellow starburst, I can't.
The fact that you didn't include orange in that's concerning as hell.
Orange isn't that bad.
Okay,
in my
yeah,
opinion.
all right. Anything orange is terrible. That's because you're dating Allie, is what that is.
Here we go.
You're fine. Okay, we're fine with orange now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to get myself into that much trouble on with the fan base and my girlfriend on the first episode. But so listen, I want to talk about this. That it's we said we're recording this on Wednesday. I think it's coming out on Thursday the 15th. So happy payday to everyone. And all that good stuff. I don't know. I'm just trying to find something in common with you guys. Please just like me. No. So the AP poll came out on Monday. The coaches poll came out last week. This is something I haven't seen in a maybe ever. The AP poll and the coaches poll were almost identical. You had the same 25 teams were ranked in both polls. There was only 4 teams or 4 instances where a certain team was flipped. And that was LSU, Utah at 12 and 13, Clemson and Tennessee, and a couple of others we'll get to as well. But I want to go through the numbers here. You had Georgia as the preseason number 1. I don't think it's a shock to anyone there. Ohio State at 2, and then you had Oregon at 3, who also received a first place vote. Running out top 5, you had Texas, then Bama, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, and Florida State. A little bit interesting there. I think Michigan still is too high. I think they're going to fall off the face of the earth this year for a number of reasons. But they're also defending national champs, so it's an odd thing of where do you put them? They're at 9 near the bottom. So rounding out that, after that you have Mizzou, Utah, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, Oklahoma now in the SEC, right ahead of Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Miami, Texas A&M, and then your 21 through 25 are Arizona, Kansas, USC, NC State, Iowa. Let me get into the numbers of this real quick, and then I want to ask you a specific question of how it pertains to Alabama. So some of the numbers I find that are interesting from this. One, you have 9 teams in the SEC. All of them are in the top 20. You have, let's see here. You have 6 teams from the Big 10, 5 from the Big 12, 4 from the ACC, and then the one lone independent, in quotes, is Notre Dame, who is at 7 overall. I actually think Notre Dame is going to be really good this year, and they're destined for the playoff with that schedule. The other thing is this. 18 of the last 20 years, our good friend Cole Kublik brought this up. 18 of the last 20 years, you've had both of these two things happen. One, an unranked team has finished in the top 10. Mizzou was the team that did it last year. And then also you had a top 10 team finish unranked. Real quick, what's the team in the top 10 that you could see finishing unranked out of this group?
I feel like Michigan's the safe choice for a lot of people. If it's not Michigan, maybe you can go Florida State.
Maybe, but I think the ACC is going to be so weak. With Michigan, man, there's Sharon Moore is the new head coach. You lose a first rounder at quarterback. You don't 13.
Okay. You do, but you don't.
Whatever. You do. You lose 13. Dude, his numbers were very. I tell you what, in that Rose Bowl, he was pretty good. I'll say that.
Tell me how high Christian Hackenberg went.
Well, either way, so he's gone, but you also had 13 players that were drafted. And here's the thing with Michigan that people don't realize. They, of course, it's great they had 13 players in the draft. That's the most they've had in forever. Texas had 11, same with them. But they had 13 players in the draft. Michigan, despite being one of the top 3 blue bloods maybe in all of college football history and also winning a national championship a year ago, they've only been around between 13 to 16 in national recruiting rankings over the last 5 years combined. It's not like they're bringing in top 10 talent year after year after year, or hardly at all. So I think that they will fall off the face of the earth. They lost a ton of assistant coaches. And also, even if Sharon Moore's great, we've seen what it looks like for some of the really good coaches. Saban was 7-6 in his first year. Kirby was 8-5. They lost to Vanderbilt. There are some really good coaches that will struggle early on. I think Michigan is that team that drops out of the top 10.
And you also got to take into account too potential distractions with all the stuff that's coming out about them. I mean, they rallied and it helped them last year. Can they do that 2 years in a row? I mean, that's tough, man. That's tough to ask. That's a tough ask of anybody.
Yeah, Auburn couldn't do it with Brian Harsin off the field, so there's that. Also, interesting that Brian Harsin did not, or that Auburn didn't make this, despite all of the in-state athletes they're currently recruiting. I'm shocked that they did not make the top 25. Who
was the one vote for Colorado, by the way?
If RJ Young has a vote, it's him. I'll say that.
Yeah, maybe
it would have to be. There are outside of John Denver. I don't know if there's anyone else that's ever Loved Colorado. That's not. He's from West Virginia. That was stupid. I just really didn't realize his last name. We'll have to cut that out. Fake producer, cut that out. So here's my question for you, though. Okay, because people are up and down on Bama. Bama's in the top 5. It's the lowest. It's the lowest Bama has been ranked in a preseason ranking since 2009, and they're 5th. After everything that we've talked about with Saban being gone and the roster turnover, all that kind of stuff. Right
what's
now,
what's the highest Auburn's been ranked in the preseason AP poll?
I don't know. I can look it up, but you'll get mad if I Google it.
Don't Google it. That was really what that was. You could say rhetorical, I guess. I just was wondering preseason during the same era.
Stats. I'm a stat guy, so shut up.
So
the highest they've been is 6, 2015. Jerry Johnson era, baby. God, that was fun. That was such a fun year. Yeah, preseason 6 went 7-6. Tough scenes. Okay, but looking at the top 25, like how many teams right now could you objectively say are definitively better than Alabama? Like you personally, and I'll weigh in too, but like I don't think the number is nearly as high as I thought it was a couple months ago.
Oh man, I'm having a tough time with this. Here's my problem. I don't know how much the Baxter injury and they apparently another running back go down. It's making Texas. Me, it's really affecting because I mean, what you looked at with this Texas offense is like, man, they've got a really good stable of running backs or a quality stable of running backs led by one of the most talented guys at the position in the entire country. And it's going to be complementing what they have in the passing game, what they have with the veteran offensive line that's going to be able to create holes, all these different things. It's like, I still think the offensive line with where they're at being a veteran group, being, has NFL talent. I still think they're going to be able to run the football regardless of who's back there at running back, to an extent. But it's like, man, those are big injuries. The Baxter injury is really big. And so, I had them picked to go to the SEC championship and to beat Georgia. Now I'm worried about that. I'll need to see some things. We'll wait and see. But I would say Georgia from a talent standpoint, that makes sense. Ohio State, top to bottom, I think they got more answers. I think Alabama has more questions right now. But even when you start getting there, you look at Oregon, sure. But, man, honestly – from a pure talent, if they get right tackle and cornerback figured out, I don't know if there's any teams that's like head and shoulders better than them. You could make the argument, if you break it down position by position, they come out a little bit ahead. But on paper, there's nothing to me that's absolutely glaring.
If you would have asked me this 4 months ago, I would have had a different answer. But the thing that it finally hit me like a ton of bricks and the light bulb went on for me was hearing Jeremy Bernard talk about this, which is this offense is going to put up 40 points a game. Like this offense, it's like no matter how you look at it. And I'll tell you what, the toughest defense they're going to face is Georgia on September 28th. You tell me a time that Alabama has struggled to score on a Georgia Kirby Smart defense when they're healthy and they're not missing 5 starters, including 2 receivers that just torched them a calendar month prior, which we don't have to get into because I'll get all fired up again. But like for real, I look at the offense and they are going to put up 40 points a game. I feel like no matter how you look at it, like running back, you brought up the Justice Haynes thing. The running backs at Washington in the last 2 years averaged 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, it's not like it's just the receivers, it's just the passing game. They're going to put up a ton of yards and a ton of points. So I look at it like this. I think you're right from the roster standpoint. I think Ohio State has the best roster in the country. I would take Georgia to beat them head-to-head because of Kirby and the assistant coaching staff they have and all that. But when I look at teams that are better than them, I don't really go past them at 3 for Bama. The teams that can finish ahead of them, that kind of filters into and segues into our next conversation, which is about SEC teams getting into the playoff and a realistic view of it, because I keep looking at this like you're expanding the playoff. And when SEC fans heard about this and going to 12 teams, I will maintain that they should have gone to 6. But you went to 12 and then you expanded to 14. You expanded to 14, Clint, before they even played a spring practice game in the year you were going to play 12. So if you needed any better example that it's all just about money, that's it. So I look at this and I think to myself, that's the two teams that I feel like are going to have the best chance of being in it every year. The number for me is 10-2. Notre Dame and Penn State. Those two teams live at 10-2. And I think with Notre Dame's schedule specifically and being the brand they are, I think that they will have an easier route to get in there. So when I look at teams that are definitely getting in or that are better than Bama, I don't think I go past 3. The teams that could get in over Bama, yeah, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, I could see Notre Dame, Penn State. You're going to have somebody from the ACC. And I think that's the thing that's going to be so frustrating for SEC fans, because there's this arrogance with SEC fans, and not entitlement, but it's a warranted and deserved entitlement because you've won 16 of the last 18 national championships, I believe, or at least played for them. And when you talk about the fact that you have that much history of winning, and you are the best conference in the country, it doesn't really seem debatable. Every year in the NFL draft, it's always the SEC, blah, blah, blah. But you're going to have, like, SEC fans need to wrap their heads around the fact that there's a G5 team getting in. Liberty's going to get in. That schedule is ranked 129th in the country out of 134 teams. Liberty's going to get in. So now you have to figure out how many spots is the SEC going to get out of 11. And the Big Ten has 18 total teams. And you're going to have a conference champ get in no matter what from all 4 Power 4 conferences. So when you're trying to cut down between who's 10-2, I think there's a 10-2 bottleneck or log jam up there at the top of the SEC. How frustrating is that going to be to look up and say, oh, Kansas State gets an automatic bye and into the college football playoff, and they went 9-3. So I think realistically the number is 4, and I think in year 1 it's 4 at the most.
Well, yeah, no, I see that, and you're 1,000% right. When I first went through the SEC schedules, and they got a website where you can go through and click each game, and it'll tell you that, because I wasn't about to do all the math. I wasn't mathing the math on all those, and I forgot I picked them to win here, but then I picked them to lose here. But at the end of it, I had 7 SEC teams at 10-2. Now, granted, that's me. You go through and you say, okay, Texas versus Michigan. At the time, feel pretty good about Texas being able to get that win. It's at Michigan, but you look at LSU versus USC. I feel good about LSU there. This would take them having to be really strong out of conference to get to 10, and all these different teams to get to 10-2. I want to point that out. Yeah. But I was going through and there wasn't anywhere. I wasn't like I was picking, Oregon to play Tennessee, and I was picking Tennessee to get them to 10-2. It's I really feel like that there are going to be a lot of really good teams in the SEC this year. And I went back through and kind of had to repick some games because I'm like, I don't think 7 SEC teams are going 10-2. That would be absolutely absurd. So I got a couple of them, down to 9-3, which is still really good. Yeah. But for Alabama specifically, and just how they're going to kind of work into the equation. I agree with you that when you look at Georgia, when you look at Ohio State, Oregon, I think the talent levels are very similar. What happens with Alabama being put at 5, in my opinion, is everybody can't wrap their minds around the fact that Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time, can retire and not much changes with Alabama. It has to change in their minds. I understand that logic. But at the same time, Kalen DeBoer doesn't have to be better than Nick Saban. He's just got to be better than everybody else. It's not like Nick Saban went to another program and now he's battling against Nick Saban. So it's and I'm not saying he's going to be better than everybody else. I'm just saying that, okay, 5 felt like a very safe number for everybody. Mm-hmm. Where you can say, okay, they're not going to be, we're going to put them as low as we've put them since, X number of years, Saban era, whatever. But we've also put them high enough in our top 5 where this team could very realistically win the national championship. They have one of the most talented rosters in college football. They had a coach that just took them to the national championship, the Washington to the national championship. And so it's like, okay, at the end of the year, if they're holding the trophy, we don't want to have to put them at number 7. That was too low. It's Alabama. We shouldn't have been this. What were we thinking? So it's like, okay, well, at least we got them in the top 5, but you got them right there at the bottom. And you've taken into the account in your own mind of the Saban effect, losing Saban and what that means. and I'll continue to reiterate, it is not about beating Nick Saban or being better than Nick Saban. You just have to be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think when you look, Alabama will be an enticing team for a playoff pick because I think they're going to be really fun to watch offensively, and I think they're going to have enough balance defensively where it's like, okay, it's not like an Oklahoma Lincoln Riley in 2018 where the defense is terrible. You're going to get serviceable defensive play, complementary defensive play, and then you're going to have, in my opinion, one of the most exciting offenses in college football. And so that's going to be a very intriguing pull with Alabama's brand for whoever's making these selections. So I think from Alabama, if they go 10-2, I mean, Chris, you got to think they're in 100%, right? Especially with their schedule.
There's no question. It depends on who the losses are to. I think there's a real thing that if you look at their schedule, if they go 9-3 and the losses are Tennessee and it's close, Georgia, no matter what the score is, and you lose on the road at LSU or Oklahoma, and that's close too, I think they're still in. If it's a bottleneck at 10-2, because the strength of schedule, you went on the road at Wisconsin. Listen, dude, I understand the South Florida game was a joke a year ago, but South Florida, some people think that they're going to compete for that spot in the G5. I don't necessarily think that, but they're going to be a better team.
Return a lot of guys.
I think that it's just a situation where, and I hate to say it, but I almost want to whisper it because my girlfriend's in the room, she's going to hate hearing it. But like, dude, I think people are so tired of Alabama, and I get it. Like, I fully get it. They're so tired of the team and the winning and the fan base and the Twitter and all that. And I fully listen. I hate the Yankees, so I get it. But when I look at this team and this program, it's like, I mean, yeah, I don't think you're going to fall off the face of the earth. And, and there's a number of reasons why. We can get into it in a later episode because we've already gone too long. I think the thing for me is 247 put out their projections, and the team, they had 13 teams in the SEC get in. And the only thing that didn't.
What now?
13 teams go to a bowl game. My bad.
Okay. 12-team playoff. SEC so good they're getting 13 in.
Yeah, we had Sankey and Feinbaum. They're the whole committee this year. It's just those two. Feinbaum will find a way to take Ole Miss out of it, no matter what, even if they were undefeated. But they had they were talking about, like, on 247, it was like, they have, for the bowl projections, they had 13 total SEC teams make the postseason. Everyone except for Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vandy. Which, don't sleep on Vandy. All right, guys, they're a hornet's nest this year.
You can hibernate on them on.
But I think with the teams they had to make the playoff, it was Georgia at 2. They got a bye because that means they win the SEC, and then Texas, Ole Miss, and Bama. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'll tell you the thing. My strongest conviction about a team that makes it. Ole Miss and Mizzou. I think one of them will make it. There's no chance both of them do. Ole Miss and Mizzou should be attached to the hip. They are. I don't know if you have this in Alabama, but they are like Aldi and Lidl, the grocery stores. Those two German grocery stores.
We got Aldi, but we ain't Aldi's.
I got news for you, Clint. You don't need both. Okay, it's the same thing. And I'll tell you what. Another thing too. Like, hopefully my mom's listening. Whenever I have to go pick her up to go grocery shopping, we can go to Aldi or Lidl. We're not going to go to both because we don't need two German grocery stores in this country. I'm still fired up over the Olympics. A lot of patriotism coming running through my veins right now. But, like, those two teams are the same. They should be attached to the hip. They play a weaker schedule, especially Mizzou, and they will most likely end up 10-2. So those aren't my picks to make the playoff for I think, but I think that Bama is in a very good standing, even at 9-3, to make it. We have a ton of time to talk about it. We've already gone on too long. I have to go help move furniture, which I'm super excited about. But dude, I've enjoyed the first show we finally got to do together. It's been a blast, and I hope that the audience did as well. You know more of the ins and outs of where this is going to be up and all that kind of stuff. So I'll let you outro us, and we'll be on our merry way. Yeah,
we're going to have a lot of content coming. You're going to be a part of several shows, weekly, whether it's meet and three, two guys, one meet. I don't, whatever it is, I'm being called.
We gotta workshop that name.
Yeah, you know what? This might be our last show. I mean,
as I said, yellow substance out of a straw. Not a great start for me, perception wise.
Oh man, we got to get out of here quick before we do cancel ourselves. All right, brother, this has been fun. CoverCrimson.com. If you haven't already, go subscribe. We're having a great time over there on the message board. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, which you are watching right now, go ahead and hit that like button on this video and subscribe as well. we're trying to build this thing into a juggernaut. We got a great team. We're going to be providing plenty of content, both, during and season, off season, doesn't matter. Chris, appreciate you joining. Hate that, the haters have ended both of our careers over this, but I think we'll get through it.
Awesome, man. We'll see you next time, and we'll see y'all next time. Y'all have a great rest of your Thursday.